Hey guys, Edward here from Edward279, the mixed content creator. Sugar. It's one of the most addictive foods out there. And while growing your own source of sweetness seems like a daunting task, there are several naturally sweet crops that are easy to grow and delicious. In today's video, I'll unveil the 10 sweetest garden crops perfect for satiating your sweet tooth. So without further ado, let's get to the list. You may have grown up under the impression that carrots are bland and tasteless, but bite into a homegrown one and you'll realize what they truly taste like. Carrots are incredibly sweet for a vegetable, as one medium carrot contains almost 3 grams of sugar. That doesn't sound like very much at all, but it's actually sweeter than many other vegetables. Even better, there are certain things you can do that enhance carrots' sweetness, such as eating them cooked instead of raw, eating them as close as possible to harvest, and choosing smaller carrots over larger ones. They also get sweeter with lower temperatures, so make sure to plant them towards the end of the growing season. Unfortunately, soil that's compacted or has a lot of stones or sticks usually does produce deformed carrots, which, while they're still edible, usually have a woodier core and are not as sweet. So do yourself a favor and loosen the soil, as well as get rid of any solid objects to ensure straight and perfectly sweet carrots. Being right on par with carrots for sweetness, butternut squash might seem like a must-grow for someone with a sweet tooth. I mean, with around 3 grams of sugar in a cup of butternut squash, most novice gardeners would think that this vegetable is a great addition to their patch. And for the most part, it is, except for one thing: space. Butternut squash vines take up a lot of space and grow fast, so if you're tight on space, it's best you don't grow it. On the bright side, however, the aggressive growth of butternuts can be capitalized as weed control, as the squash vine's aggressive growth means it chokes out any plants unlucky enough to be in the way, including weeds. It's also frost sensitive, so be sure to plant it after all danger of frost has passed. But even with its colossal space requirements and aggressive growth, butternut squash is still very much so an excellent crop for satiating a sweet tooth. Another shockingly sweet addition to this list, beets are actually sweeter than even other super sweet crops on this list, like sweet corn, peas, and squash. With a whopping 9 grams of sugar in a cup, beets are actually on par with a few fruits, such as strawberries and grapefruit. However, not all cooking methods affect the sweetness in the same way. If you want the sweetest beets, roast them. Roasting brings out their natural sugar and makes the final product taste relatively sweet compared to beets cooked using other means. Beets are also shockingly easy to grow and really nutritious. So this is yet another case of a food that gives you the best of both worlds, being both delicious and good for you. And much like the aforementioned carrots, beets undergo a process known as chill sweetening, in which cold temperatures trigger the conversion of starch to sugar, leading to sweeter carrots, beets, and turnips. Tomatoes aren't usually thought of as sweet, and they're not that high in sugar compared to other crops on this list. And don't get me wrong, big beefsteak tomatoes, as delicious as they aren't all that sweet. Smaller cherry tomatoes, however, are more concentrated with sugar due to their smaller size, and thus taste sweeter. Tomatoes actually only contain about as much sugar as carrots, with 1 cup of sliced tomatoes having only 4 grams of sugar. Still, if you want to grow sweet tomatoes, plant cherry tomatoes instead of big ones for a sweeter flavor from your tomatoes. Plus, just like snap peas, they make an excellent garden snack, so there's no reason not to grow tomatoes of any kind. And if you're wondering, no, growing cherry tomatoes isn't much different from growing regular big tomatoes, so if you already grow regular tomato varieties, incorporating cherry tomatoes into your garden shouldn't be a problem at all. Although they look like white carrots that have been pumping iron at the gym, parsnips are actually creamier and sweeter than carrots. And rightfully so, as 1 cup of parsnips contains 6 grams of sugar, twice the sugar content of carrots. and making it one of the sweetest vegetables you can grow. Parsnips aren't nearly as easy to grow as carrots, but the sweet harvest at the end makes it more than worth the extra effort. However, they're also notoriously slow germinators, taking seeds anywhere from 14 to a slower than molasses 30 days to sprout. And much like carrots, late fall frosts actually make them sweeter. So to ensure sweet roots, plant parsnips towards the end of the growing season so that you can get in at least one good frost before you harvest, so that you ensure you have sweet, creamy, and delicious parsnips. And also, much like carrots, be sure to plant parsnips in stone-free and loose ground to avoid deformities that end up debilitating the final flavor. Despite having a pretty trashy reputation amongst kids and even some adults, peas aren't actually that gross under the right circumstances. And if you've ever eaten a sugar snap fresh off the vine, you know what I'm talking about. Peas' sugar content largely depends on the type, with 1 cup of shelling peas having 8 grams of sugar, a cup of sugar snap peas having 3, and a cup of snow peas having only 2.5. Despite this, any type of pea makes for a sweet garden snack that'll almost certainly change your perception of peas. Even better, peas are just about one of the easiest vegetables to grow, be it in a garden or in a container. They're not very demanding, can grow in really compact spaces, and like I said before, are really delicious. Plus, peas vine up, not out, making them ideal for making use of vertical space. So there's basically no reason not to grow these sweet, crunchy legumes. Sweet, rich, and tasting quite like a soft carrot, the sweet potato is one of the sweetest vegetables you can grow. With an average sweet potato having 6 grams of sugar, sweet potatoes are insanely sweet compared to quite a few other mentions on this list, such as peas, carrots, squash, and cherry tomatoes. And despite their name, sweet potatoes are in no way related to white potatoes, because while regular potatoes are in the nightshade family, sweet potatoes are in the morning glory family. And also, unlike potatoes, sweet potatoes are extremely frost sensitive, needing anywhere from 85 to 120 days of consistent, warm, frost-free weather for a successful crop, which is why they're usually grown in the southern United States. But there are several people that have tried and succeeded in growing this crop further north. So when it comes to the sweet, creamy tuber, the sky really is the limit. Being the backbone of American agriculture, corn plays a crucial role in this country's economic strength and power. But surprisingly, 99% of the United States corn production is actually not the sweet stuff you grow in your garden, but instead a different type of corn called dent or field corn. But I digress. With anywhere from 4 to 6 grams of sugar in a cob, sweet corn is undoubtedly an excellent sugar crop, and many gardeners grow it for this reason. And while corn is no doubt easy to grow, there is a crucial part that's really hard to get right: pollination. In large cornfields, the wind usually does the dirty work, but on a small scale garden, relying on the wind for pollination is like taking a massive gamble. So if you want to ensure a good crop of corn, hand pollinate. It might be tedious, but if it means guaranteeing a good harvest of sweet, tender, and juicy corn, I'm all in. While all 3 of these types of berries are indeed different fruits, all 3 of these easy to grow berries are tied for third place. Unlike most tree fruits, blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries are all incredibly easy to grow in containers. So if you're tight on space, these 3 fruits are ideal. All 3 of these fruits are incredibly sweet compared to other crops, but blueberries are an outlier. Blueberries contain a whopping 15 grams of sugar in 1 cup, compared to 7 grams in a cup of blackberries and an even lower 5 grams in a cup of raspberries. That said, these soft, sweet fruits share many of the same health benefits, with all 3 being rich with vitamins and disease-fighting antioxidants. Overall, if you want to grow fruit in a tight space, this trio should definitely be a consideration. There's nothing quite like a strawberry picked fresh from the garden, but despite their sweet taste, strawberries don't actually have that much sugar, with a cup of strawberries only having around 7 grams of sugar. Don't get me wrong, 7 grams of sugar definitely leaves most other crops on this list in the dust, but it's still less than that of a few other crops, including the number one sweetest crop on this list. However, there are cases in which factors such as not enough sunlight exposure or overwatering lead to plants producing not so sweet berries. So if you want to guarantee sweet strawberries, make sure to 1. Plant them in a location that gets full sun, that means 6 hours of sun a day or more. 2. Give them no more than 2 inches of water a week. 3. Make sure the soil has good drainage. And 4. Make sure to prune the first year's flowers, as well as any obstructive, old, or diseased foliage. This last one should come as a no-brainer, but melons are easily one of, if not the sweetest crops you can grow. Nothing can beat the flavor of a ripe, homegrown melon, and it doesn't matter what type. 1 cup of honeydew contains 14 grams of sugar, a cup of cantaloupe contains 13 grams, and a cup of watermelon contains a somewhat lower 10 grams of sugar. This means that melons of any kind leave literally almost all other garden crops on this list in the dust except for blueberries. However, melon vines, much like squash vines, usually grow aggressively across the ground to massive sizes, which means that many varieties aren't eligible for container gardening. Fortunately, there are also a few varieties that are compact and ideal for container gardening that are just as sweet as regular melons. Overall, even though melons aren't the easiest crop to grow, they're still incredibly rewarding and excellent for satiating a sweet tooth. So there you have it, 11 naturally sweet garden crops to help you tackle your sugar cravings. We hope you enjoyed this video. As always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!